Hey everybody, it's Lindsay and I'm here today to share with you how you can create this really fun punch art card. For my first step, I need to go ahead and create the top of my card. So I am using this 3.5-inch circle, and this is just a plain circle die, and I am going to cut out a piece of white cardstock, and this is folded at the very top, and along that fold I don't want any cut marks, so I'm going to let that circle die hang off the very top. This doesn't need to be a whole circle. I will end up cutting this down even more in the long run, so you don't need a very big piece of cardstock here to make this work. I went ahead and held that down with some painter's tape, and I'll just run that through my die cutting machine, and you can see once I bring out this piece of cardstock, it is still connected at the very top of the card, so no need for extra scoring or taping on down the line to make this into a card. It's ready to go. I also need to go ahead and cut out my popcorn kernels while I have my die cutting machine out. I'm using the steel rule die from Sizzix. It's called Borders and Hydrangeas, and the great thing about this is it's going to allow me to cut so many of these little hydrangea flowers at once. Only today I'm not going to be using them as the flowers, I'll be using them as popcorn kernels. So I'll go ahead and I've got some white strips of cardstock here. I've laid those down on that die, and I'm cutting with the cutting side facing up just so I can place these on the die correctly, and I don't need to do any positioning and then try to flip it over. It's just a lot simpler this way. I cut some of those from some dark yellow cardstock, and I'm also going to cut some from a light yellow cardstock. And again, using the steel rule die just allows me to cut more at once. So to make the bucket on this card, I am starting with two white rectangles that measure 3.5 inches by 4 inches. And while I'm cutting, I'm holding these together so I know they're nice and even. I'm going to take these and I'm going to bump them up against that straight edge at the top of my paper trimmer. And then I'm lining them up with the 1/2 inch mark on the right hand side, rotating that around until the bottom corner meets my cutting line. Then I can go ahead and push down my paper trimmer, my cutting blade, and then I can just slice off that angle. Here you can see I'll have to flip this over so I get the right angle. I'm lining it up with the top portion, that little straight edge there. I'm lining it up with the 1/2 inch mark on the right hand side, and then I rotate it around until that bottom corner is even with my cutting line there on my paper trimmer. I close it up and I can slice it off at an angle, and then I've got two angles that are exactly the same on both sides. Now I also want some red striping on my bucket, so I am just taking a piece of red cardstock and I am making cuts at 3/8 of an inch for 3/8 of an inch strips, and this will just give me a nice size stripe on my bucket, and I cut about 6 or 7 of those. Now to make this card base, I am going to go ahead and I need to cut off part of the circle. So I measured out where my card would be exactly 5.5 inches tall, and then I made a pencil line at the very top of my bucket where I need to go ahead and slice off part of this card. I won't slice right at that line because I need a little bit left over, so I'll go ahead and slice right underneath that line and just trim off the remainder of that circle I don't need. Now I need to go ahead and glue these stripes on, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with one, and I'm using Glossy Accents as my glue. And I'm going to start right in the middle and just line that up and put it down, and this Glossy Accents takes no time to dry. I'm also going to go ahead and use my little grid mat that is behind me there, and that'll help me line these up nice and straight. And also to get them even, here's a little trick. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on this next one to get it ready. And then I'm taking one that doesn't have glue on it. I'm going to bump it up right against that one I've already glued down. And then that gives me a nice spacing guide to go ahead and put this next piece of red cardstock down. And now I know that all of my little stripes will be nice and equal. I'll go ahead and lift up that stripe that didn't have any glue on it, and you can see what a nice way this is to get all of your stripes nice and even. So I'll show you this one more time. I'm just going to go ahead and get this first stripe ready, or this next stripe ready, that I'm going to go ahead and put down. And I'm just putting the Glossy Accents right on the back of it. And then on the left hand side of that first stripe I put down, I'll go ahead and bump this piece of red cardstock up against it. and then that gives me a nice little guide to be able to evenly put this other red stripe with the glue on it down. And then I can lift up that middle one, and I know that that white stripe in the center of those two is as equal and even as the other ones on both sides. I went ahead and finished that the same way all the way across the card, and then I need to go ahead and set that aside to dry. While I was waiting for that glue to dry, I'm going to go ahead and add some distressing to all of my little popcorn kernels just to give them a little bit more dimension and to make them look a little bit more realistic. Now you could skip this step, but I really think it adds a lot to the card and it really gives it a more realistic look. So I'm using mustard seed distress ink and also the spice marmalade distress ink. You could switch up the colors as well if you wanted to. And I am just pouncing this on. I am not making sure this is very even. I really want it to be chunky and patchy looking, just like real butter would look on a popcorn kernel. On the white ones, I use both mustard seed and spice marmalade, and then on these darkest ones, because the mustard seed is so close in color and even lighter on the darkest ones, you really don't need to use that. So you can see I'm just using the spice marmalade on those. And I'll just continue to work on these, and this really does go pretty quickly. And again, they don't have to be even. You don't have to make sure that color is on all of it. You really want it nice and patchy looking. Now I cut quite a few of these little popcorn pieces. You can cut as many as you want, as few as you want. It's really up to you how tall you want your card to end up being. So it's really just about playing with the amount you cut. So I'll just finish up these last little 4, and then it's time to start putting the entire card together. So I'm starting off with this half circle that I created first, and I am putting double-sided adhesive on the very bottom and top edges of this card, or this half circle that I've opened up. So this will be the inside of the card. I want the tape on the inside of the card. I'll go ahead and peel off the backing paper on both of those pieces, and I'm using this cutting mat behind me, the lines on that, as my guide to place this down and make sure it's nice and straight across the popcorn bucket. I've laid both pieces down on my cutting mat. I'll go ahead and press that top circle down first, that front one, and then I can fold over the other side to the back of the card, stick that down, and then that gives me a nice even proportional card all the way around. And you can rewind that and watch that as many times as you need to. It's a lot easier to watch that being done than for me to explain it to you. So to make these popcorn pieces look even more realistic, I've already added the distress ink, but I'm also going to crumble these up. So I am just crumbling these up, kind of squishing them in my hands, and then pulling them back apart and giving them some cracks and crinkles. Now to put these down, I'm using Glossy Accents first. This is a very strong glue that will really hold these. And right now I'm just focusing on placing these all around that white top half circle that I created. And this is just going to cover all of that up. You don't want really hardly any of the white showing. I'll go ahead and just continue to stick these down, and this is about what looks good to your eye. You don't want too many of the larger flowers placed together. You don't want too many of the smaller ones placed together. You really want it nice and random, and you just want to go ahead and make sure that they're nice and poofed up, I guess you could say, and really just about the volume of these, and that's what makes them look the most realistic. Now I'll just place a few more of these down with Glossy Accents, and then I kind of ran out of room, so I needed to change my gluing method. So I'm switching over to Pop Dots now. You can use any kind you want here. And I am just sticking one on the back of this, and then I'll start placing these in all of my little white spots that I have left over that are still peeking through. Now you could also double these up and add even more dimension if you wanted to. But you'll see in the end of this video that this card already has a lot of dimension to it. It's going to be one that probably won't go through the mail that well. This will be one that I hand deliver. But it's just such a fun card to do. I love these punch out cards. So I'll just continue to place a pop dot on the back of each of these and just fill in all of that leftover white space. You can see I'm pulling some of the little leaves or kernels that they are now up and placing some to give it even more dimension. I'll layer these up. I'll place some of the smaller ones on top of the larger ones, and that just really helps give it a more authentic and realistic feeling. I'll go ahead and speed up the video at this point because it really is just a lot more the same. At this point, I don't have a whole lot of the white left that is showing through, so it's just about finding a place to put these little leftover kernels and really building up and making that nice and full. And that will finish off that popcorn portion of the card. The only thing I have left to do is my sentiment. Now this Junk Food Alley sentiment set from Two Paper Divas is what inspired this entire card. If you go to their website, they do have some little stamp sets that coordinate with this sentiment set, but I really wanted to create this punch art card with this pop by sometimes sentiment. So I just did some partial die cutting to create a very little short small banner here from white cardstock, and then I'm just inking up that sentiment with some black dye ink, and then I'll just place that right down into the center of that banner. I'll go ahead and add some foam tape onto the back of this banner, peel off that backing paper, and then just right under that popcorn, I'm going to go ahead and place that banner right down onto the bucket. And that will finish off the card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this fun, sort of different card, and I hope I've inspired you to create one as well and maybe make some punch art of your own. As always, I will leave you guys with this close-up and just a few pictures. For more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog, craftingwhilecaffeinated.wordpress.com. The link of this is in the description box below, as well as that I in the top right hand corner. That will get you there too. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!